Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Now I know what you're saying. You're like, Noah, this is the video that you made like a few days ago, but in a different phrasing. And you may be kind of correct, actually, but that's completely wrong, completely incorrect. I lied to you. You weren't correct at all. Because today, I'm asking the question, how important is every stat in Wizard101? So, why exactly am I asking this question? Well, first off, let me start by saying this video is probably not for the most experienced players in the world. I know a lot of you hear that and are probably like, there's new Wizard101 players, and there is actually a surprising amount of Wizard101 players that have no idea what stats they need to focus on. I would say about once every 2 days on the Wizard101 subreddit, someone posts, how good are my stats for this level? Or what stats should I focus on at this level? What damage should it be? Whatever. So with that out of the way, I wanted to ask, how important is each stat? I want to look at each kind of level phase through the game and tell you what stat you should be focusing on and really how important that stat is and how much you should have of that stat. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's start off with the beginning of the game from level 1 to level 30. I would say that that is considered the early game of Wiz and the first stage of gear. Obviously, the reason for that is that at level 30, you unlock the Sky and Hasta and you unlock Zeus gear, which kind of is a power spike compared to before that. So from levels 1 to 30, what exactly should you be focusing on? Well, at this point in the game, almost all gear really gives like one of 4 stats. It gives resist to your school, it gives flat damage, not percent damage, it gives accuracy, or it gives health. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think from levels 1 to 30, you should focus almost entirely on health and maybe accuracy. You may be like, but Noah, damage. I'll be completely honest with you, having 10% damage at levels 1 to 30 really isn't going to help that much more. Having accuracy and health, on the other hand, will. Accuracy obviously prevents you from fizzling, and in the early game, fizzling is a big problem, especially for schools like Storm and Fire, where you're at that 70 to 75% accuracy range. That 1 to 2 accuracy really could be the means of life and death in a battle. And on the note of life and death, health is very important, and a lot of gear gives a semi-decent amount at that point, and just getting some bizarre gear with health and maybe a little bit of accuracy can really actually make or break a battle in the early game. If we're being completely honest, you're not going to get more than maybe 15% damage at this point. You're not going to get universal resist unless you have heart steel, and obviously the other stats aren't going to happen either. Now, there are the starter clothing bundles which do give a decent amount of damage, but these are ridiculous prices. You can see here that that's what, $15 for one of these starter bundles, which isn't horrible, but I mean, do you really want to spend $15 on getting one of these starter bundles? No, absolutely not. Fire's kind of cool because you can get a Sky and Hasta for level 1, but otherwise definitely not worth it to get these bundles. And without getting these bundles, you're not going to get any gear this good up until level 30 and Zeus gear. And speaking on Zeus gear, let's talk about our next gap, which is level 30 to about 60. This is the stage of the game where you start actually getting powerful. You start going through a power spike and you get pretty important things like the Sky and Hasta that boost your damage. You can get Zeus gear. Later on, you can get Buckingham Palace gear. You can get Wintertoss crafted gear. You can get the Dragon Spiral World gear. You get my point. There is a lot of gear sets at this level, and I will say, I know it's a little bit late to say this, this video is not telling you where to get the gear sets from your level. I do have videos on that in the past if you want to go check them out, or you can go check out someone else's channel that probably has an updated guide on all the little gear sets that have been added to the game. This is just going to tell you what stats you should be focusing on. And from levels 30 to 60, this is when you want to start focusing on damage. I'd say the most important stats from 30 to 60 are damage, accuracy, and power pip. You're not going to be really getting a lot of resist on gear at this level, especially before Waterworks, because Waterworks gear is when gear starts giving universal resist. You may get some from the Dragon Spiral World gear or from even the Zeus gear. I know the Zeus gear I think gives resist to specific schools like elemental or spiritual, not universal, which is kind of the reason why I don't think you should be focusing on this stat. Realistically, damage is more important, accuracy is more important, and power pip is more important. These are going to help finish those those battles just a little bit faster. And at this point, you can stop focusing on health. Health, to be honest, in this game isn't something that you should be focusing on. I know as a kid, I always just bought gear that had the most health, especially just in the bazaar. I would see the highest health and I'd be like, that's the way to go, survivability. But obviously damage is very, very important. And I would argue it's way more important than health. Now you don't want to be having no health, but it's not the stat you should be focusing on the most. From stat ranges, this is probably where you're going to have about 30 to 60 damage at around level 30 to 50. You might jump up a little bit higher to 80 on some schools, especially once you get the Dragonspire World Gear if you get it, or the Winter Chest Crafted, you'll definitely jump up a little bit higher. And you can get accuracy and power pip depending on if you can get jewels. If not, you can kind of just get whatever your gear has. I don't think you can max out accuracy up until you get to around probably Malastare gear, but at this level, again, just those three stats you really want to be focusing on. Ooh, it's me, editing Noah from the future, and I've turned into a ghost apparently. Basically, I was watching the video back and editing it, and I realized I forgot an absolutely major thing, and that is ARCHMASTERY. I don't know how I forgot this. I think it's because it's new, but basically, I want to talk about that real quick because this is actually a very important thing to know if you are a low level and you somehow don't know it yet. Basically, some spells at this level require you to have a ARCHMASTERY pip, a pip from a different school, as you can set right here. This includes spells like Rat Spin or just generally lore spells or Ship of Fools and stuff for death. Basically, the reason why this is important is because if you are life or death, your 4-pip AoE, you're only going to be able to use it if you have an ARCHMASTERY pip. You start naturally gaining ARCHMASTERY at level 50, so you don't need to necessarily worry about this past level 50, but before level 50, this is important to know. If you come here to the jewel shop in the shopping district, you can find it by looking at the map or coming right here across Colossus Boulevard, and you come to this vendor, you can see that she actually gives you an ARCHMASTERY jewel for any level for specifically the tier or square slots. So you usually want to have a thing that has at least one of these so you can just get that ARCHMASTERY pip, right? Now I will say this jewel is a bit expensive, so don't necessarily expect to be getting this before levels like 30 or so, maybe even level 20 if you're really cracked at getting gold. But basically I just was watching back the video and I wanted to throw this in here because I thought it would be kind of important to know if you somehow don't know about ARCHMASTERY at this point. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Next up is levels 60 to 100. This is kind of where you hit your stride in this game and where you start kind of becoming meta, quote unquote. Oh my god, I am very red in Zafaria. Don't mind my face. I promise I'm not this red. There you go, look, I'm pale again. At this stage of the game, Waterworks gear really starts giving you more stats. At this point in the game, you're going to be having about 60 to 100 damage. Certain schools like Storm can even get higher to like 120. Ice is really going to be on the low end at 60. Every other school you should be averaging 80 to 90 damage at level 60s to 100. You're also going to be having quite a bit of accuracy or power pip depending on what school you are. 4 of the schools I believe get power pip from Waterworks gear and the other 3 get accuracy. And this is where you can start really focusing on resist. I'm not going to say you should focus on it, but the universal resist given by Waterworks gear is incredibly good, and at this point we'll start ramping up. I know like certain schools like Ice can get up to like 40 to 50 resist once you reach level 60, which is really good. You're probably not going to be focusing on any stats different than what I did last time, except with the added bonus of resist. Real quick, let's talk about critical because I know some people don't really understand what's going on with critical. At this point in the game, critical doesn't really matter. Critical is a stat that you want to have some of, but it doesn't matter really if you have a lot, because critical is really at this point the stat determines how much damage you do when you crit, which is important, but it's not a stat that you really want to focus on anymore. I remember back in the day as like a Storm Wizard, you used to focus on crit so you can get up to that 100% crit chance. Not really anymore. At this point, critical rating is kind of just, it's like a dumb stat. Like you don't really want to focus on it that much. It's just kind of there. Obviously, as as mentioned in my last video, this is also going to be around the point where you start getting armor pierce. Similarly to what I said in that video, you're probably going to have about 20 from the level 60 to 100 range. Nothing too good, and it's definitely not a stat that you want to focus on yet. All right, from the next stage of the game, levels 100 to 130, I would say at this point you kind of know what stats you should focus on. At this point, I'll tell you how much you should have. This is when you get Malistaire gear. You should be having over 100 damage at this point in the game. The only school I think that might struggle to get over 100 damage would be Ice, but every other school should have no problem getting above that 100 damage mark beyond level 100. The most important stats I would say at this level are damage, resist, accuracy, power pip, and armor pierce. Armor pierce at this point you should be getting up to the 40 range so that you can start piercing through most tower shields and enemies resist. You can get pierce jewels at level 95 to focus on, which are very important. And you can also, once you reach level 100, be able to get 100% power pip and max accuracy. At this point and for the rest of the video, you should have max accuracy and power pip if you can, and just kind of focus on whatever stats more important to you. Now we're just going to skim by the final phase of this video because at this point, once you're level 130 and beyond, you should definitely know what to focus on and you should know how much damage your gear gives. From levels 130 and beyond, you should probably be in the upper 100 range of damage. You should probably have around 160 or so, or potentially higher. And then once you reach up into the 170 point, you get damage jewels and you should have in the 230 range. It's very much a power spike, I know. Isn't it crazy that you go at level 100 from having an average of 100 damage on each school, at 130, 160, and then at 170, you get up to the 230 range. Compare that to the first 100 levels of the game, you have under 100 damage. It's just a massive jump. Again, at this point in the game, I shouldn't tell you what stats you should need to focus on, but on most schools, you can get 100% accuracy, 100% power pip, 40 armor pierce, and 230 damage. And then this resist stat will change depending on what school you are and what pet you have. I know Ice can get like 230 damage and like up to high 70, 80 resist at the same time, which is absolutely insane. I would say the only thing that has really changed at this point and the 130 to 170 range is this is when you should maybe start investing in ARCHMASTERY rating, if only to fuck over those around you. Now, you may be asking, Noah, what do you mean by that? Well, you see, at this point in the game, the hit all spells that everyone uses, all of the new ones, cost a school pip. Now, let me give you a little piece of advice. School rating, for some ungodly reason, which I will make a video on this in the near future, is still based on others' ARCHMASTERY rating, which means that the person with the highest ARCHMASTERY rating is going to be getting pips first. So, for example, on my death, who can only hit first round if he has that pip, because obviously Ship of Fools is the only 2-pip spell and still requires a school pip, I decided to invest in ARCHMASTERY jewels just to screw over those around me. And isn't that a fun thing? That in this game, to be the optimum build, you need to screw over all of those around you. So I would recommend, if you are life or death and you're using Rat Spin or Ship of Fools, investing in those ARCHMASTERY jewels. Others around you might hate you, but it's the price to pay to be able to hit first round. They should be carrying around a 4-pip AoE in their deck anyway at this point. Like, most attack decks should look like this at this point, just in case someone else does gain a pip before you, you can still use a card. But I think that about wraps up this video. I don't really have anything else to add. Let me know if this was helpful in the comments below. This was kind of a throwback to my older style videos where I used to make guide videos all the time. I probably have the most guide videos out of any Wizard101 YouTuber on their channel, so I thought this would be a cool little return to form and what stats are important to focus on in this game. I also saw someone ask this question. I think it was either on Reddit or in my YouTube comments, I don't remember, but someone asked this question and I was like, sure, I'll answer, whatever. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope someone found this useful, and if you didn't find this useful, I hope you at least enjoyed hearing me talk for about 15 minutes. But that's it for today. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button, and you can also join my channel if you want to support me financially. But that's it. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.